This podcast is featured on the Gun Rights Radio Network, podcasting freedom. You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under sources.
It's time for On Target Radio, Chicagoland's only radio show dedicated to educating, entertaining, and discussion of firearms, legislation, and your Second Amendment rights. Presented in part by the Illinois State Rifle Association, Illinois Gun Works, Pelcher's Shooting Supply, and Safer USA. Now here's your host, firearm instructor, educator, and enthusiastic Second Amendment proponent, David Lombardo.
And welcome to On Target Radio, another chapter. I'm David Lombardo. Sitting across from me is my co-host, Tim Dalan. Say hi, Tim.
Howdy, David.
There we go. It's always a
I
fast
studied.
start.
I took me all week to think of that.
There you go. That's probably true. Probably what you did all
I
week
think
long.
about very few things.
Tim and I are here every Sunday night, except for the Sunday nights when the Illini kiss us off. But we're here every Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. talking about all things Second Amendment. And it's your opportunity to call in and talk to our guests. We'll take your questions or comments at 312-642-5600, or go to Facebook, like our page On Target Radio, and ask a question there, and we would be happy to answer it. But first, I have my rant of the week.
And this is a good one, and everybody should pay attention to it. You know, why? Well, I'll wait till after. Go
Our
ahead.
premium subscribers get this in advance in Friday's newsletter, which usually comes out on Saturday or Sunday.
Yes, they do.
I don't know why it's premium. They don't pay anything, but they get it in advance.
They're premium preferred.
There you go. Anyway. Ours, you don't mind, do you?
No, go ahead.
I don't mean to step on your toes here. Okay. Our society is geared toward instant gratification, and the single most common complaint is it isn't fast enough. The only thing worse than the fact that we have a population of attention deficit disorder adults is the fact society has convinced them they're right. Countless people are telling me how tedious it's become with respect to Illinois concealed carry and gun ban issues. I always manage to muster up the strength to avoid my slapping the snot out of the individual, sometimes metaphorically, sometimes not so metaphorically. I thought I'd become the magnet for that type of complaint until I read Richard Pearson's email blast this week. Turns out he's getting much of the same. Pearson is the executive director of the Illinois State Rifle Association, one of their lobbyists in Springfield. He recently wrote, "Just today I had a member call me and ask how much longer the ISRA was going to pester him to call his legislators about gun control bills. My answer was, until we win." Pearson continued, "What we are engaged in is nothing less than a good old-fashioned street fight. This is the kind of fight where, in the end, one guy goes home while the other guy gets carted away in a box. If you or your fellow gun members do not stand up for what you believe in, your gun rights will be carted away and dumped on the scrap heap of liberties sacrificed in the name of political and social progress," he said. There's a fundamental misunderstanding about what's happening both in the Illinois State Legislature and in Congress. This fight has nothing to do with logic or facts. It's strictly about implementing a new social order. Modern American liberalism is about a strong federal government that takes care of the individual from cradle to grave, but it isn't as rosy as it might seem. It seeks to reduce, if not totally eliminate, the right of the individual to determine what's best for him and replace it with a nanny state. Under modern American liberalism, anything that fundamentally enslaves the individual to the government is good. It's faulty logic that espouses the principle that socially deviant miscreants are misunderstood and have more rights than law-abiding citizens who do take personal responsibility. And a very significant portion of that philosophy says citizens should not have the right to defend themselves against anything, and particularly not against an ever-increasing ruling class who seek to take away individual rights. Someone took me to task on theological grounds for referring to our current president as the Messiah. I'm being blasphemous in their opinion. I refer to the president with the lower case Messiah, who is by definition a savior or liberator of a group of people. It's not a reference to theology, but sociology, and this president is precisely that to the modern American liberal. Obama and his 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are sociopaths skilled in the art of deception. They put their finger in the wind of public opinion, change their verbiage to make it as acceptable as possible to as many people as possible, but their goals never waver. In our small corner of society, their goal is total disarmament. Everything, every rifle, shotgun, and handgun, even as they themselves own them because they see themselves as above the rest of society. So the next time you want to whine about getting so many emails, letters, and calls for active participation in contacting your elected officials about gun control issues, stop and consider you're falling prey to exactly what they're hoping for. They want ADD to get the best of you so you'll quit complaining. They want you to join them as latte-drinking, sushi-eating, Volvo-driving, New York Times-reading, body-piercing, Hollywood-loving, left-wing freakazoids and forget about clinging to your guns and Bible. And when that happens, brother, you can kiss conservatism and self-reliance goodbye forever. And that, Tim, is my rant for the week.
I'm right there with you. I just don't understand. I hope that the people that listen to this radio show are here with us and have the same thoughts that we do. You can't stop. Springfield is not going to stop. Washington, D.C. is not going to stop. We have to protect ourselves. Nobody is doing it right now. The NRA is doing it. The ISRA is doing it, and we have to do it. We can't sit back and trust that somebody else is going to take care of business for us. Too long in this state, we have done that, and that's part of the reason we're in the middle of the mess that we're in now. You can't stop. You have to do it. It's not going to stop. When we win this one,
but it's inconvenient.
When we win concealed carry and we have it here, don't think that the problems are going to go away. They're going to try to take it back from us every year. They're going to try to throw another roadblock, another stumbling block. They're going to try to restrict us from some area or doing something with it every single year, multiple times a year. We're never going to be able to quit. And if you can't help do that, maybe you're on the wrong side. And I'm sorry about that.
Apparently, I have a liberal microphone in the studio here. My migrophone just ran away from me. That's I guess that's a cue. We need to talk to Dave Carlson. Tonight's topic is. Sometimes you have good days.
That train of thought just derailed.
And sometimes you have bad ones. Today, we're talking Chicago gang violence, guns in the hood. You can call us at 312-642-5600 and voice your opinion. In the next segment, we'll have Paul McKinney, who is running for 2nd Congressional District, is going to be on. Paul is certainly no stranger to controversy, and we will talk to him coming up. And we have Dave Carlson, criminal defense attorney, now an old friend. Well, not an old friend, but an old friend. And so Dave is on this evening. Hello, Dave.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
So we're glad that you made the big drive here. I mean, do you agree with this about we have to keep the pressure on?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's bigger even than just the simple gun issue. It is about our government and what our government wants to do to us as Americans. I think what we see across the board, whether it's state, local, federal politics, the government, or at least the people in government right now, understand that their power is derived from the people that they're doing whatever it is they do too.
Do they understand that?
Well, they understand what keeps them in power.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've created an entire class of people, as you said, who are subsistent and dependent upon the government, and that is a self-fulfilling prophecy for those who are in government.
Sure. And a number of people now, it's coming out. There was a congressman, even Biden made a comment. They're getting more and more blatant about this is just the first step. We want total confiscation of all firearms. They never used to say that out loud. And now several of them have actually said it.
Right, and for the first time, a lot of people in Illinois, this is a shotgun hunting state. It's not a rifle state, so people hunt with their shotgun. And a lot of people out there, they trap shoot or they hunt with their shotgun, and they've said, I'm not really in this. They're trying to take handguns. They're trying to take so-called assault weapons. I don't have any skin in the game. Well, now, just recently, in the last 2 months,
you got skin.
They want to take away semi-automatic shotguns. They want to take away most pump shotguns. They want to take away your shotguns, turkey shotguns with a pistol grip on them. So, everybody's in it now. Everybody's in it.
I think what scares me the most, or at least what should concern us, is it's a misunderstanding of those in power of what being an American is. And it's about rights, and it's about the Bill of Rights, it's about the Constitution, and the fact that these people in power seem to think that they can pick and choose what rights are applicable and which ones aren't. That's the real problem.
Well, particularly when they exercise the right themselves.
Liberals always like to let everybody know that they know more about you and more about what's better for you than you do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a problem. We're going to take a short break coming up. When we come back, Tim is going to do his 1 minute, right?
Maybe even 59 seconds.
Okay, his fighting back segment. And then we're going to have on our show Paul McKinley, running for the 2nd Congressional District. Very interesting gentleman. You're going to want to hear what he has to say. He lives in the hood, and he has a background. He understands gang violence, and he's got some very strong opinions. Actually, Paul is running more against the Chicago machine than he really is against his opponent. So that's going to be all coming around after these few messages. You're listening to On Target Radio, AM 560, The Answer.
For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has supported the rights and freedoms of Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. For over 100 years, the ISRA has supported the use of firearms as a sport for personal protection and as a fundamental aspect of national defense. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has been supporting you. Don't you think it's time you supported them? ISRA.org or 815-635-3198. The Illinois State Rifle Association, supporting you.
For 35 years, Pelcher's Shooters Supply has served the Lansing area. Pelcher's offers new and used firearms sales, appraisals, and gunsmithing service. Pelcher's new spacious showroom has hundreds of major brand firearms and supplies, and PelcherGuns.com features daily specials. Pelcher's Shooters Supply on the corner of Ridge Road and Henry Street in downtown Lansing. Online at PelcherGuns.com or call 708-474-0662.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560, The Answer, with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more.
And we're back, and it's that magic moment, Tim's fighting back.
As brought to you by the Illinois State Rifle Association. A woman shot one of two intruders as she hid in a closet in her home in Elm City, North Carolina, Friday morning. The sheriff's office responded to a breaking and entering call around 10:45 a.m. One suspect, Christopher Joseph, approached the woman and she shot him. Joseph and the other suspect, Michael Bynum, then fled the home. The woman, for some reason, just happened to be home that day because she was sick. They'd probably cased the place the day before and came at the wrong day. Joseph was found by arriving members of the sheriff's office approximately 300 feet from the home, laying on the road in a pool of blood. Bynum was found in nearby woods. Joseph was transported to the hospital, where he remains in custody and in stable condition. Law enforcement found electronic equipment and other household items that did not belong to the victim in the suspect's vehicle, so they'd obviously robbed other houses. Joseph Bynum are charged with breaking and entering and possession of marijuana. The woman will not face any charges. This has been Fighting Back, brought to you by the Illinois State Rifle Association.
Wunderbar. Thank you.
54 seconds.
Always a good one. I can't complain with that. Now we're going to go to Paul McKinley, who is running for the seat in the 2nd Congressional District. Paul, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, how you doing?
We're doing good. We actually have a interesting question from Mark on Facebook. You're probably aware last night there was a mob of, they're saying, I think, a couple hundred kids on Magnificent Mile. Did you hear about that?
I heard about it, but I don't have all the details of what actually happened. I'm hearing two different stories. One story I'm hearing that it is a mob on Michigan. The other story I'm hearing that it was a protest against Ron Emanuel and the closing of the schools.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
And that is being covered up because it was all youth, just young teenagers. And they said some had signs, and the police took the signs from them and they was chanting, "Don't close our schools." So I'm hearing two different.
That's interesting.
I'm hearing two different stories about it, and I'm waiting to see what I see on Facebook, because Facebook is just showing, so far, just showing the police, they out there scrapping with police. It's not really clear what really was being said. But let me say something to you about this gang violence or gun violence. All violence in the criminality part in the city of Chicago are drug-related. Whether it be a crackhead that break in your car and steal your radio, or a gang member on the corner shooting it out with another gang member for territory, it's all based on the narcotic trade. All narcotics. Chicago is the central hub for the distributing of all narcotics, specifically heroin and crack cocaine in the Midwest. Now, this is never brought out when they deal with the gun issue. This is never brought up. When you're dealing with drugs, you cannot sell drugs without guns. It's impossible. You just can't do it. So every time they talk about the gun problem, you notice. Now, everybody that's listening to me, you never notice they ever say nothing or use the terminology narco-terrorists. Narco-terrorists is people south of the border entering into this country who set up a pipeline to bring hundreds of metric tons of crack cocaine and dump it in African-American communities, and then on the white side, dump crystal meth on the white community.
Are they bringing in firearms too? They're bringing guns with them?
Now, I'm going to get to this part. Now, the same people that have the power and the freedom to move around in the city of Chicago to move these drugs, because you can't do it unless people use a blind eye, unless there's politicians that turn the other cheek. They're greasing palms. Those same people sell trafficking guns. They're gun traffickers. In our city, they're called gun merchants. They drive right up in our neighborhood and open up the truck and just sell guns out the truck. Anything you want. That's how it's done. It was never brought up. Now, you asked that question. Why is there not any commission, sub-Senate hearing, congressional hearing about narco-terrorism in the city of Chicago? They always want to talk about some little small fry, some chump standing on the corner with $500 worth of crack cocaine, and then they bring the police and make it seem like they brought the big guy down. And they said we caught him, he had $800 worth of crack and $60, and we brought the big guy down. And we're really making a dent in this drug crime in the community. And we don't know what. And then they always say we don't know where they're getting the guns from. I did 20 years off and on in the prison system. I was arrested twice and convicted for armed robbery. If don't nobody else know where illegal guns come from, I know. Wherever there are drugs being sold, they are the same people that are selling drugs south of the border. They're not going into no gun shop buying these guns. Hello?
Yep. Paul, let me ask you this though. If this is going on in as large a manner as you're suggesting, how can that escape the Chicago Police Department? And by the way, I got to do a quick break. You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560. The Answer. Our guest this evening is talking about Chicago gang violence, guns in the hood. It's Paul McKinley, running for the 2nd Congressional District. How can the chief of police of the city of Chicago, McCarthy, how can he not know this?
First of all, take a good look at Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy come from one of the most corrupt cities in upstate. He come from Newark, New Jersey. He wasn't stopping no violence up there. He wasn't curbing no crime up there. Take a good look at him. They're saying that he has underworld ties. And I like to say this here. I want y'all to listen to what I'm saying. I'm not making this stuff up, and I can validate what I'm saying. When McCarthy first came to Chicago, the narco-terrorists didn't know how he was going to react. They didn't know whether he was going to come after them or was he going to come after the little, small, insignificant guy that there ain't no nothing in the streets that they can catch every day of the week. The first thing the narco-terrorists did to give him an offer for him not to mess with him, he gave them a 2-football field of marijuana. How can 2 football fields be growing in the heart of the city of Chicago?
That sounds pretty amazing.
Google it. Look. People who listen to me, Google Chicago big marijuana bust this last summer, 2012. In the 10th ward, in the 2nd district, in the very district that I'm running to. Chicago is ultimately corrupt. Too many hands are being, this drug money is going through too many hands. And the victims of all this crime is the honest, law-abiding citizen who gets up every morning and goes to work and has to go through this vicious and vile and depraved community with all this corruption going on. These citizens have to get up every day, take their kids to school, and these are the same citizens that they say that they don't want them to be able to arm themselves. Now, I like to speak on, and every person, this is not about no hunting rights. That's not what the Second Amendment is about. The Second Amendment is about, and matter of fact, I want to say it this way, so everybody listen to me won't get it twisted.
Paul, you got about 15 seconds. That's all we got.
Okay, what I'm saying to the citizens is this. They gave you the Second Amendment right for tyranny, for people who in power. Once they take your Second Amendment away, they're able to do what they did to the people in Nazi Germany. They're able to do what they did to the people in Italy underneath Mussolini. They're able to do what they did to the people in Russia. If you allow these people to take your Second Amendment right, you won't have any rights left.
Okay, we're going to have to break for a message, and we'll be back in a few minutes with more On Target Radio.
Some people shoot beer cans, some shoot paper plates, and some just shoot the breeze. Here at Action Target, we believe there's more to shooting than just putting holes through paper. As the world leader in shooting range design and technology, Action Target has been revolutionizing the world of firearms training for more than a quarter of a century. Go to actiontarget.com to order your steel targets and range equipment today. That's actiontarget.com.
For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has supported the rights and freedoms of Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. For over 100 years, the ISRA has supported the use of firearms as a sport for personal protection and as a fundamental aspect of national defense. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has been supporting you. Don't you think it's time you supported them? ISRA.org or 815-635-3198. The Illinois State Rifle Association, supporting you.
Hi, I'm David Lombardo, host of On Target Radio. You're living proof that radio advertising reaches listeners. In the 2 years I've been advertising on AM 560 WIND, Safer USA grew from 300 students a year to over 1,200. By coupling our On Target Radio broadcast with our Facebook page, we found our audience is steadily growing, and in only 2 months it appears we've exceeded 5,000 listeners. Over 34% are in the age group 25 to 34, 26% are 35 to 44. We have listeners from Rockford to Western Michigan and Southern Wisconsin to St. Louis. Thanks to live streaming on the internet, we also have listeners as far away as Germany, Japan, and New Zealand. On Target Radio is offering low-cost sponsorship opportunities on Chicago's premier conservative talk talk radio station. Advertising on AM 560 WIND has worked for Safer USA. Let me show you how it can work for you. Call 815-744-5487. Join the On Target radio team today at 815-744-5487.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560, The Answer, with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more.
You're listening to On Target Radio, and we're back. Give us a call at 312-642-5600. 312-642-5600. We're talking about Chicago gang violence, guns in the hood. John is on, and John has a question about why are guns a question. John, how you doing?
Hi, guys. Dave, thanks so much for all you do for our Second Amendment rights, and Tim, you as well.
Well, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Why don't people really regale against the corruption of Chicago and Illinois altogether?
Well, John, that's that's kind of the $64,000 question, isn't it?
I understand that, Dave. I grew up in the 36th ward of Chicago, and there is no. It's like some people have talked about the Wild Wild West. Some of our elected politicians have talked about the Wild Wild West, but they don't seem to want to do anything to change it.
And I think that's what our guest Paul is speaking about. It sounds like the same thing.
Let's see if we can get Paul to jump in on this and see what his opinion is.
First of all, I like to say that the people have been beat down, and underneath the tyrannical rule of Mayor Daley, which came in with a gun ban in 1988, I think. He came in with a gun ban. First of all, I want to say that when you hear them saying gun ban, they stripped away the people could not defend themselves against this tyranny. And once Daley came in with the gun ban and he disarmed the people, then he left the people at the mercy of them who did not have no mercy. So now the people is living underneath straight guerrilla tactics. But now that Mayor Daley has moved on, now Ron Emanuel, who I like to call Ron Caliglius Emanuel, for his twisted and degenerate culture that he's imposing on the citizenship in America, because he's very degenerate in what he tries to input. He's indifferent to the pain of the people. At least Mayor Daley, as an old-time known member of the machine, he was a known boss of the machine, and Daley he bit you, but he bit you with a smile. Ron Emanuel, he bites you, but he bites you with a growl. So it's a difference. You get bit, but it's a difference in how they're biting you. Their main thing with the corruption in Chicago, because the people are tired, they're ready to take off the shackles. So I think that I have just as much chance to win as the other can. I have a 50-50 chance, because if I can convince the people that we must stick together, not because you elected me, because we must send the machine a message that we want to revolt. So electing me is revolting against the machine.
But can one member of Congress do anything?
He certainly can do something in Chicago. We certainly can rake them over the coals in Chicago. We certainly can call congressional hearings in Chicago. We certainly can bring Eric Holden, who is entangled right now, embroiled in a gun scandal now, and bring him to Chicago and ask him, why is we not dealing with the guns, the narco-terrorism, and some of these guns? Let's trace some of these guns and see, do they have any, can they be traced back to Fast and the Furious? Because I'm not quite sure that these people can get these type of guns. And have you seen the type of guns that they're finding on the streets of Chicago?
I mean, I've seen pictures of, there was a table full of them one day.
Let me say something to y'all. The gun trafficking is more, it's just as lucrative for the narco traffickers as it is for narcotics. And I'll show you how. Where a gun may cost $200 in the store, when you're out selling those drugs, you can buy that drug for $500, $800, $1,000, because you need that gun right now. You're out there, and they're killing people for the stuff that you do. So you need it, and you don't care how much it costs. So the gun trafficking, the arms sales, small arms sales by the gun traffickers in the city of Chicago is just, and the DEA seems to not find any of them. You never hear of them busting any big gun buses. You never hear of any big drug buses because they have made a deal on the local level. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to me. Just reason with me for 1 minute.
Well, Paul, you only got 10 seconds. And
okay,
we want to thank you for being on the show this evening.
Okay.
But we're out of time in the segment. Second Congressional District. Yes.
Go to my website, McKinley for Congress, for the 2nd Congressional District. Go to my website and you can look my videos up. I thank you very much. I'm pro Second Amendment, and if I get in there, I don't care what they say. I'm not voting against it.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Second Amendment.
Good luck in the round. We'll be back with more On Target Radio after these messages. You're listening to AM 560, The Answer. I'm David Lombardo, president of Safer USA, Chicagoland's most popular firearm training school. We continue to offer our popular home protection and concealed carry seminar every month. This 8-hour seminar covers everything you need to know to safely and legally use a firearm for both concealed carry and home invasion, and qualifies you for Florida and Utah concealed carry permits good in about 30 states. Be sure to call and ask how we can help you raise funds for your organization or provide a guest speaker. We're also offering the NRA Basic Pistol Course and our Tactical Pistol 1 and 2. As always, I offer private one-on-one instruction for Basic Pistol, Chicago Firearm Certification, and Basic Home Defense. For further information, please call 877-954-3030 or go to saferusa.com. Safer USA, choosing to own a firearm is your business. Teaching to own it responsibly is ours.
That's 877-954-3030 or saferusa.com.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560, The Answer, with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more.
And we're back with more On Target Radio. Call us at 312-642-5600 or go to Facebook, like our page On Target Radio, and ask a question there. We have Tony, who's been patiently waiting for some time. Tony, how are you doing?
Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
We're doing good. What's the question?
Pretty good. Is Paul still on, or did you let him go?
No, Paul's off, and we got Dave Carlson, our super-duper defense attorney, who tells me that if I ever need his services, my other attorney was telling me he'd get me off if it took him 100 years. Dave's telling me he'll get me off if it takes 25, so I'm moving up.
Okay. Well, I was talking to your screener. I was trying to figure out, which topic to stay on because I have a couple of points. When it was with Paul, I started thinking about, these flash mobs and all that was happening. I just saw, the ISRA's notification of what happened last night. Up in the shot on Michigan Avenue, but I also have an issue with Second Amendment. Water cooler wars. So I don't know. What are we talking about here? Give me a direction.
It's your question.
Yeah,
we're here.
See,
we're just sort of spinning our wheels, waiting for you to state one.
Here's how it works. We have a radio show. You call in, you ask a question.
All right. Very good. Okay.
But you got now 30 seconds.
Okay. Second Amendment, talking about, when you talk to these liberals, and Dave, you had it right on target, no pun intended, when you made your introduction, they really want to spin things to their direction. It's about, socialistic, mass rights instead of individual rights. But, what they do is they interpret the Second Amendment to say that it was intended for a militia, not individual rights. And they go back to the Federalist Papers, where they say that we should have had a standing army, that was the debate that was going on about a standing army. And the compromise was saying, if we don't have a standing army, because they thought that could be bad, then we should have firearms in everybody's houses so that we could form a militia at, the wink's notice. But because we have a standing army today, we don't need the Second Amendment anymore. How do you answer that?
Thanks for your call, Tony, and we will have our crack attorney answer that very question.
Well, I think it goes back to the first thing we said, and that is when we start picking and choosing, our elected officials pick and choose which of the first 10 amendments apply or don't apply simply because of their personal beliefs, we lose. We lose as Americans. As it relates to a standing army, the standing army answers to the president, who is the commander-in-chief. I think one of the things you look back on, and if you go back through history, World War II especially, one of the biggest issues that I think the Russians always said, and I think the Chinese have echoed this sentiment, is they never felt strongly about ever being able to come to America and invade because they knew that that in fact was the case. There was a gun in virtually everyone's house.
A gun behind every blade of grass.
Which is actually incorrectly attributed to Yamamoto, but we won't go over that cliff. We have an interesting individual who has a comment to make. You're listening to On Target Radio, AM 560, The Answer. This is Chicago Gang Violence, Guns in the Hood. Mark, you got like 15 seconds. What's your comment? Mark's an ex-cop.
Well, the gang culture is a subculture in our society. And when these kids go to jail for any crime they commit, even killing people, even if they're under 18, they gain rank in their gangs. So what they ought to do is have a mobile gallows, take the kid out, hang him in front of his peers, and set the example.
Would we give him a trial?
You know what? After they're found guilty, you take them out and hang them.
Oh, okay. So there'd be due process, though. Because Carlson is across the board here, and he's looking at me cross-eyed.
Well,
no,
and it just
due process. Because, it's a chimpanzee method of psychology. If you own a chimpanzee, it'll bite you, scratch you, kick you until you beat the shit out of it, then it will respect you. And that's what you have to do to these kids now.
Well, Dave, you may want to make a comment about that.
Well, first and foremost, I was the lead gang crimes prosecutor at the state's attorney's office in Will County before I turned into this defense attorney. But obviously, there's issues regarding due process. That being said, I think one of the biggest mistakes we've made in a long time is doing away with capital punishment. I think that begs the question. Once again, if you look at what we've done here in the state of Illinois in the last 10 years, we've gone away from a society based upon law and order and what we believe in as Americans, and we've gone to this liberal socialist thought.
Right. We do need to do something about it. People talk about all the time we need more gun laws. No, we need to enforce the laws that are on the book. We need to quit cutting so many deals. When they use a gun, they need to go away and they need to stay there. I mean, because what's the percentage on these guys coming right out of jail in 3, 4, 5 years and doing the exact same thing again?
But the problem is you're stacking them like cordwood, and at some point you just run out of space for cordwood.
Well, it depends on why we're stacking them.
Well,
we stack more, if you want to call it wood, based upon nonviolent offenses.
That's true.
We're putting people in jail and in prison for driving offenses, whereas the violent criminals are either getting a pass or not being dealt with appropriately.
No,
exactly.
You're right. We've got screwed up priorities. We're going to have to take a break in just about 30 seconds or so. But one of the things I want to talk about when we come back in our last segment, and we won't have a lot of time, but McCarthy in Chicago, what is he, a chief or superintendent? I think he's superintendent of police, is going to put rookie cops on foot on the street in the worst neighborhoods of the city. And that just blows me away. I mean, I find that astounding. So in our last segment, we'll give our kisses goodbye. But first, I would just like to talk about that a little bit, because I think that's the what is the Blazing Saddles movie? It's the last act of a desperate man. And I don't care if it's the first act of Carmen. It's not good. So we'll be back with these messages with more on Target Radio, listening to AM 560, The Answer.
For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has supported the rights and freedoms of Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. For over 100 years, the ISRA has supported the use of firearms as a sport for personal protection and as a fundamental aspect of national defense. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has been supporting you. Don't you think it's time you supported them? ISRA.org or 815-635-3198. The Illinois State Rifle Association, supporting you.
Some people shoot beer cans, some shoot paper plates, and some just shoot the breeze. Here at Action Target, we believe there's more to shooting than just putting holes through paper. As the world leader in shooting range design and technology, Action Target has been revolutionizing the world of firearms training for more than a quarter of a century. Go to actiontarget.com to order your steel targets and range equipment today. That's actiontarget.com.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560, The Answer, with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more.
And we're back. We're talking about Chicago gang violence, guns in the hood. But one of the things that I just am dumbfounded by, I said it before we went into the break, and I would like Dave to address it. They're going to put rookie cops on foot on the streets in the worst neighborhoods of Chicago. Now, this is McCarthy's way, the superintendent of police in Chicago. This is his way of trying to drive down the crime rate. Is the assumption that if they just keep killing rookie cops, that'll keep them from killing other people, or what?
Well, I think it's a bit of an insane plan. What you're doing is you're putting young kids, arguably in their mid-20s, early 30s, whatever they may be, never experienced, in most cases, any sort of real violence, and you're going to have them on the front line defending the people of the city of Chicago. You know, I know, David, you worked in law enforcement. I was a probation officer in Cook County for 4 years, carried a gun, worked in these neighborhoods in my mid-20s, and it was one of the greatest educations I ever had, but it was also based on the fact that I also relied on some very experienced and guys that were long in the tooth, if you want to say that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, the question that comes to my mind is this. There are gangs where you earn your stripes by killing somebody you don't know. That's an initiation, rite of passage. Isn't it cooler to kill a cop then? Doesn't that make a cop walking down the street a more likely target than ever?
Not to go back to what we just were talking about, but I feel like we're moving backwards in the city of Chicago and Chicagoland, in the state of Illinois. Now we're talking about putting rookie cops on the front line. You talk about last night, you didn't have if you were shopping on the Magnificent Mile, you had something happen which caused you to question your safety and security.
Sure.
We're going the wrong way.
I'm just, maybe I gave Rahm Emanuel too much credit from day one. Maybe he just is a political hack. I don't know. I mean, it's just, it astounds me, some of the decisions that are being made.
Well, I think it once again goes back, Tim, we were talking about it, and I know, David, your opening comments were basically this. It's an elitist almost type of mentality that we know or they know better than we do. And what makes sense in paper, what makes sense in a political spin is what they're going to do. We haven't heard from Rahm Emanuel about last night. We haven't heard about any of this stuff.
Silence.
Yeah.
Tell us about your law firm. You got 30 seconds.
Well, very quickly, obviously, now that I joke, I say I've gone to the dark side, being the defense attorney. But I was a prosecutor in Will County. I ran for state's attorney out there, and I came in second out of two, which obviously was a...
But you're right up at the top there.
Absolutely. And 111,000 of our best friends voted for me. But that being said, we were talking about this before we went on. A defense attorney really is there to make sure that the government is held accountable for what they're there to do, and that's what we do. That's what we're there to do. We're there to make sure that everyone gets a fair shake in this. The best thing about being your own boss and having your own practice is you don't have to take every case.
That's true.
And if someone gives you the creeps, you don't have to deal with them.
Give us a phone number. How do they get a hold of you?
815-740-1700 is the firm. We're in Joliet, Carlson, Zalazzo, and Otakirk.
Tim, you got 15 seconds.
I'm working on it. Just want to remind everybody, our next home protection concealed carry class is April 13th in Bradley, Illinois. It's right next to I-57 if you're going south in Bradley. We also have a tactical rifle. Safer USA has a tactical rifle class coming up in Waterman this coming Saturday, April 6th. Sign up at saferusa.com. And our youth camp is coming up. We talked about it last week. The sign is ready to go, so sign up.
I'd like to just mention that we are looking for we're looking for a Green Beret, a SEAL, or a Delta Force guy to be on the show. Thanks to our guests, Paul McKinley, David Carlson, Robin Zeeland, George Hoffman's on the board. We'd like to thank all our sponsors. Next week, bulletproof vehicles. Tom Hurley, president of Heat Armor, is going to talk about how you bulletproof vehicles. We'll be back with more On Target Radio.